started the recording and we are live. So today, welcome to the SUSE QE Tools roadmap discussion. For this April, the last one we had 2 months ago, and now what we can take a look into what we had done over the past 2 months. So let me go to the top of the page. Just after the QE Tools team description, we have how we work, and in there we find a query which is closed within the last 60 days. So we'll look into that one. I will present some new shiny stuff or interesting issues that we had fixed. And then, and then later on, I would like to walk with you over the plan and the overview of what we plan to work on and what is currently making us busy. We have some more recent joiners to the tools team, and I'm glad about that. And I'm happy to report that this did not reduce our velocity, quite the opposite. We managed to resolve 170 tickets within the last 60 days, which is awesome because this is nearly like 3 tickets now per calendar day. And usually before we had a throughput of 2 tickets per day. I don't know why that happened, but I'm happy to see that. We have resolved 40 tickets in the OpenQA infrastructure project, 85 in the OpenQA project. So there was a bit more shift towards working on OpenQA features as well as regression fixes itself, which I like. And on the second page, we can see that there are also some fixes to OpenQA test itself, mainly something like OpenQA and OpenQA test, but also in some case when we are supporting people on weird test issues, then they might show up in this category. Then 33 SUSE internal ticket, which is now marked properly with this private, so we know that this is something that only the members of this ticket project have access to. And 4 generic QA tickets in public. So let's take a look into those. I can see that this one is actually no big deal. That one should actually be in the SUSE QE project because this is about 2 SUSE internal ARM servers, which we have is Wasserstoff and Atomkraft. We also participated in alpha testing of the new version of Velociraptor client already since some months ago. And now that is concluded effectively by using again a proper updated client from official repositories or not relying on some development repositories. So now I would like to look with you into the OpenQA tests first. So what we can see there is re-enablement of some workers and an OpenQA and OpenQA clan tests that took longer in Git clone. So what we have is various recent features regarding Git cloning or updating tests. We have resolved the saga for version control awareness, and with that we also released a proper new major version of the authored instance of OpenQA stack, which is now in version 5. But obviously there's still some subtle rough edges which we only see over time, and this is a symptom of that. If we take a look into the OpenQA project, as I said, we have solved the version control awareness. We bumped the version 5. With that, we are also should be consistent with SemWare compatible versions. Also, some might say that the patch level looks a bit weird with an incrementing number. And so there's the saga. Let's see what else is there. We made use of a more recent, so to say, Perl feature now consistently. which is to use the try catch, which is built into newer Perl versions. But for older Perl versions, there's feature compat try, simple module, which then helps to make sure that we can use that also in older versions, but in the same syntax that is forward compatible. So something like an eval and then if with dollar add sign can be now replaced with a more readable and more consistent try and catch, and no problems with the scope of this special variable. We already did that in before with auth audience, and now we have also done that in OpenGA, and also with style checks we've ensured that we are not regressing there, which is nice. So I like this clean code. We have finished to ensure complete statement coverage within auth audience. So what that means or how that is visible is that if we take a look on CodeCov reports, then we are able to see a true 100% coverage, meaning that every single statement in the complete project auth audience is covered by tests, or there are explicit exclude rules so that whenever you touch this code, you would know like, okay, there is an according unit test, or I have to be careful because maybe this is like the one line which says like die unexpected error, which we don't have automated tests for, but are really unusual to reach. The according work for OpenGA is in the work and is part of the same saga, which is OpenGA for SUSE customers, which we also see as helpful for when we work on better code quality and ensuring a certain level of quality. But obviously, there are also more customer-facing features included. So I wanted to look up the according ticket for Open UA, so you can see this whole block, this is all done, and then we should have improved code coverage in OpenGA, and we can see that there's quite some work done in here already with 11 closed tickets, 12 are still open, so we're working on those, and actually we are, just judging by the numbers, I would say over the past years actually, we have improved a lot. We're at 99%. But there's still some areas where, you know, if you would do changes, then we wouldn't know exactly how this is covered with tests. Next, there is section numbering in the OpenGA documentation. So that's something which we came up with as a necessity over time because the documentation grew, and now you have numbers and you can properly link to those, of course, and then it's easier to reference the rather lengthy and exhaustive OpenGA document. And by our most recent joiner to the team, hello Emil, we have an UI related improvement. So if you take a look here, then there was always this number with a minus and plus, but never a description like what is this number for. If you would hover over the text, then you will see some explanation, but now with priority that is properly prefixed, same as, you know, it's just like what we write above and below, and then there's also some help text here. Plus, if I'm logged out and I take a look on the same test, then you can actually still see the number, but you cannot see the controls anymore, which were there before, but they were not, you know, usable by not logged in users. So that's a neat improvement to the UI. Now let's go back to page number 1 and let's take a look what else is there. So let me see. There is Support with broke multi-machine setup. Hi 469, happy to see you here and happy to have got your feedback about where the OpenK setup is not entirely straightforward regarding on, Wicked, Firewall, the network manager and multi-machine setup. So we could actually improve that. So it's not just is like read the manual or something, but actually let me take a look. Yep, recording poll is here is your prevent conflicts to ensure ETH phase is assigned to one firewall D and only one firewall zone at a time. Plus, this is also running Wicked IF up Ethernet bridge, so this actually ensures to enact the changes at this time and not needing a reboot or anything. Then there are updates in OpenSUSE regarding SE Linux, and this enforcement has then also suddenly hit us in the OpenK and OpenGates, and it looks like just the past day, even more necessary changes came up. But this was the incident from 22 days ago. So what happened there is if you take a look here at the test results, you get a service unavailable error 503, and that turned out to be solvable by an SE Linux rule, which we have now in the configure web proxy script, which is part of OpenK. So, if you start OpenK, then it should allow Apache or Nginx to be able to access your local host OpenK web instance. So what is the related thing that I don't know up? Let's see. I think it should be linked here. So we have an epic, which is already created from more than a year ago to make OpenK work in an SE Linux enforced environments. The main profiles that we roll out with OpenK are for AppArmor, and this is the main testing target. But we need to get ready for SE Linux. So there was this yeah, okay, it's not linked here, but there was a problem in current test results, which I assume are related to Linux as well. Maybe needing the next step here for allowing some specific access. We had problems also in the OpenK test with our mirror infrastructure, and that seems to be related to the challenge that we develop OpenK quite fast past, and we build new packages like near continuously on OBS and test them in the OpenK and OpenK test. So just to show how that looks like, you can see that every hour there's a build, and there's the problem which I mentioned for 3 forbidden. Looks like SE Linux to me. But the problem that we had is that the test would fail to get content from the repository because probably we are too early trying to access the data when it's not really there. And let me see if I can find the recording code now. Yeah, here. So what we do is we now use download content OpenSUSE.org, which is generally to be avoided because this is not making use of the mirror infrastructure. So you can get quite a slow access, but here it seems like this is necessary for us to ensure that we have access to the package, which we will soon after delete again for testing purposes. Right. So this was also related to no automatic submissions of auth audience in OpenK to Tumbleweed. So we fixed that, meaning that with that we should be back to every couple of days we have new submissions in auth audience in OpenK in factory, meaning that if you run on Tumbleweed, then you don't need any additional repositories because you are perfectly fine to use the automatically tested and delivered packages there. So make short OpenQA video tutorials or feature showcases. So for very long, we have a saga of better marketing for OpenQA, and I was always looking forward to have some kind of really short videos, like not like this workshop where I ramble on over an hour, but something which is really catchy and small to showcase individual features or use cases or provide some help in the context of OpenQA. And Rob from our team was diving into the ticket and coming up with really awesome results. So we have the video on YouTube, but also we have a how-to for us on our team wiki, so that we know how we can create such videos as well for upcoming next topics, which is great. So I'm looking forward to see more of those. So how does this one short video look like?
How to contribute to OpenQA in 60 seconds. Don't know where to start? Check progress.opensuse.org and head to the public OpenQA project. Next, go to the issue overview page and filter for beginner and workable tickets.
You can see here that this is really going really quickly over a certain topic, showcasing different things, highlighting. It's fast-paced, but also you can watch it as many times, and I really like the style how we ended up here. So this is great. Support for config files in openqa.d. So that one is a cool one, because what we can, well, there was already the process for many years to support proper conventional style of where to read config files from. We really didn't ever have a problem or a strong need to adapt OpenQA. But we had problems in particular for OpenQA SUSE QE that sometimes our OpenQA ini, the main config file, became corrupted. It's like there's content missing or some 0-byte areas included or only part of the file written. And so far we are still not exactly sure where this comes from. It seems to come, my most likely hypothesis is that this is related to salt and how we use salt to change individual entries in an existing ini file. What salt is needing to do there is doing something like 50 individual open, write, and close operations on a file, which might be a problem. And then also there's a zipper trying to install a new version of a package on an upgrade, which we also do very often. So this might interfere in some cases, even though I couldn't easily reproduce it yet. So I wanted to avoid that, and I said, like, well, we can implement a support, which is like a proper conventional approach anyway, to support reading drop-in configuration files in a configuration directory. And that's what we have in place now, and that's actually what we already use for OpenQA SUSE QE. So what we do now with Salt is that we simply write to, let me actually show you that. So what we do is we write the configuration to a separate file, and then we, instead of using this ini file management, so you can see in before we had this section here with ini options present, and we changed that to simply have a plain file, which is still a Ginger template. So that Ginger template can be, filled with variables. But what Salt then is doing, going from 50 write operations to a single write, because a single file is written. Plus, additionally, this is a file which is really only touched by Salt. So because this is like in a separate config directory. So while I'm confident that this will actually prevent the config file corruption completely. Documentation of how to achieve full traceability or a paper trail of OpenGA. So it says documentation, which is part of an epic about full traceability and reproducibility of OpenGA tests with Sultan Balog, line manager within the SUSE QE department, has been bugging me for years. And my main statement is like, well, in principle, OpenGA can do that, but maybe it's not entirely obvious how to do that. So the very first thing that we do in this epic is to improve our documentation. So we have the section about traceability and reproducibility of tests, which explains on what's already there and what you might want to account for when triggering or designing tests, so that at any point we know exactly all the moving parts which came into an OpenGA test to define the test object itself. And what will come later in this epic are then things like helping with the reproducibility, so that you would have the possibility to say, I want to rerun this test and want to replicate it exactly from the time of when we ran it originally. And then only if ever change individual parameters, but not multiple parameters at a time, to see what impact this might have. Enable automatic OpenGA git clone by default. So that is part of the version control awareness saga. And what that means is that by now, if you trigger any test, regardless if it's using the, so to say, legacy way of, you have an OpenGA test distribution checked out in valib OpenGA share test, or if you directly specify a git URL on the test, in both cases, it is ensured that Git is kept up to date, or that a repository, when it's not yet there, is up to date. Meaning that this is effectively replacing the fetch needle script, which was in before always like running in some crude cron jobs, and then if you don't have it, then you would have outdated test definitions on your directory, and then maybe the needles at the time of when running tests are not properly matching the time of actually running the test versus time of watching the test result. So that should now all be problems of the past by having automatic Git cloning there. There's also a system timer available, so that you can periodically update the Git test directory, regardless if when or if at all tests are executed for that. Yep, so that concludes the things we have done within the OpenGA project. So just a very short look into the OpenGA infrastructure. So this is like various alert handling. Let me just find if there's something noteworthy to present. Oh yeah, that one, event enable prevention of unauthorized asset downloads on OSD, is already old, but we just concluded that within the past 2 months. So now now OpenGA instances can be configured to not allow assets download without authorization, meaning that, well, you can log in over OpenGA, and only then you can, as well as workers can only then have access to assets like ISO files or QCOR files, in particular QCOR files, because there might be something sensitive ending up in there. So depending on how you want to administrate your OpenK instance, that can be enabled or not. And we have it enabled now for OpenK SUSE, but for OpenK OpenSUSE org, that's not necessary. Is it possible to disable automatic cloning? Yes, at least by configuration, that's possible. Would be interesting to disable that by a variable. So why do I want to disable it? Have you encountered problems? Okay. Yep. So there were some recent problems. We will look into that too.
Can you hear me?
A bit garbled
Sorry?
and a strong echo.
Okay, it's because I'm not having my usual setup. But basically, so I'm cloning my Windows as root,
Okay.
and then I'm getting these messages like insufficient permission and so on and so forth. So I have to log in as Gecko test and then do fix all the permissions to be able to run the tests. So
Right.
I'm there.
Okay, so that's an interesting error. Please report a ticket about that with this error details, and then we will take a look into that. Plus, additionally, sorry, please mention the idea to disable the execution of a git clone job on request. I think that would be a good idea, at least for debugging purposes, right?
Right.
Thank you. Good. So we had a lot of things that we needed to update within the SUSE inventory management system, and it's still ongoing to ensure that all the SUSE LSG QE assets are actually in a proper state now in the new system. There was some data which was not migrated and something that needs to be changed, and we need to find new workflows. And then also what I plan is that we present that to the QE department on how to work with netbox rather than rectables now in the new system. So that will come. Yep. So that concludes the resolved task. Any questions or feedback about the close things? Nope. Okay. So let's take a look. What will go on next? So we have on the top level, we have concluded that saga about version control awareness. So really happy about that. And now what is still standing here is supporting CC compliance of the Prague 2 SUSE data center, which we do, but there are some additional features that we want to implement to replace short-term mitigations with longer-term sustainable approaches. For example, how we deploy updated software and such. And then as well, the second saga would be OpenK for SUSE customers, where the use case is that as a SUSE customer, you want to run the tooling that we want to have, that is OpenK, potentially including OpenK tests to verify downstream products. So many tasks are related to those two sagas, but also there's always some reactionary work or maybe some improvement work which we have some room in our backlog to already work on, which is for future sagas. If we take a look now on the current backlog, now we have 62 tickets. And what I would like to do is already not look at the complete backlog here, but do it split, because we are already since quite a long time running two sub teams within the tools team. One is the dev team and one is the infra team. dev team is focusing on development and the upstream development, and then the infra team is working on supporting the complete QE infrastructure, supportive tooling, administrating OpenKE SUSE DE, but this also involves some software development for certain parts. So let's take a look into the dev backlog first. I'd like to keep them both more or less evenly sized, which is a perfect match because we have 62 tickets in total. Here we have 31. So what are we currently working on? There's this managed config file and config directory support, and now we want to streamline that and finish the topic properly by supporting /SUSE etc support, as well as ensuring that we have the legacy approaches covered when you still have an OpenKE INI, but effectively you don't need it for new installations. So this should also make new setups more easy, because then by default you wouldn't need to take a look at all into this config files, and just if you need to override individual values, then one could look into that. Then we have, since very long, we have OpenKE and also OrderInst automatically submitted to factory. We also have a version which is supported for SLE, but we do not yet have a fully automated and streamlined approach how to update packages which end up first in package up and then later on also in SLE. So one part is also OrderInst. And so this is what we are currently working on. The idea is something like whenever we do a submission to OpenSUSE Factory, this is also a good time to submit to the backports project. Then we are planning a team internal workshop in spring around the OpenSUSE conference. So this is why we also have that covered in the ticket. We have encountered already since very long that when we upgrade and restart services a lot, then there can be some left behind tasks because they do not have its own tick term handler. But because each minion task that we have in OpenKE needs its special understanding of how we treat it in particular, that's why we also need that's why we have individual tasks for the individual minion jobs that we work on. In progress is to support to set a step to the skip status in the test, which is actually not a feature request but a support request. The question rather is like, should this really be part of the test API to set an individual module to skipped? How should it influence the overall job? Because we already have skipped, but in a slightly different use case. So that's under discussion. We had identified some years ago that the OpenKE WebSockets daemon and scheduler has a certain limit of how many workers can be connected at a time, which made us quite some problems. We have implemented a configurable limit, something like 1,000 worker instances that can be connected without making problems. And then if there are more, OpenKE prevents those workers to connect, to kind of prevent denial of service. So this ticket here is about the next step to, well, raise the limit or better understand the limit and prevent it from being a problem. So at best, it would be kind of a dynamic detection of how many worker instances can be connected. I mentioned increasing the code coverage, and you can see here those text beginner and easy. Those code coverage tasks are not having a direct benefit for users or customers. They have an indirect benefit in the long run because it makes it easier to develop new features or to fix bugs that we encounter. But also we found that those tasks are very good learning opportunities for new team members. And also so far, the feedback that I got is that a lot of people like those tasks because it really helps to learn a certain code area, but it's related to increasing tests. So there's a side benefit to that. So a really good opportunity for learning on the job. So this is why we do that. But as you can see on the color, this is with low priority. So it's like not a top priority to work on that. And then we have still bugging us. So this is actually a reopened ticket to have problems that jobs sometimes incomplete and report about address already in use. So there's something left behind and left over in processes blocking a port when new chemo instances want to start. And I mentioned the reconsider the team composition, the splits, which we are doing in the dev team and the infra team. And we can move this forward carefully, step by step. For example, to also present the according backlogs individually, not just within the team, but also to the outside, and use it for backlog management together with our stakeholders. And then make more short OpenQA videos. So I teased this one video. We have a tutorial how to do it ourselves. So this should be the opportunity for other topics to also be covered accordingly. What's new? Yep, the OpenQA and OpenQA test that we have seen that now fails with Forbidden is something new, and better handling of minion tasks in Git clone. So for 6.9, maybe a bit related to what you found there. Also in some other cases, if the GRU service starts at an unfortunate time, then it could be that OpenQA jobs stall indefinitely because the linked Git clone that is linked to the individual job is then not properly cleaned up or retried again. So that's something that we need to cover then. Now, if we take a look into the backlog of the infra team, then we see also another 31 tickets. There's one urgent alert ticket, which is related to is like, hey, why is my job scheduled and not being picked up for this long time? I'm happy that I actually found also a beginner ticket in there, because often the task can be a bit intimidating for new joiners, but that one should be easy. I found this Grafana panel, which looks like, well, it should be obvious that something is not optimal there. I hope that this is not that hard to fix and a good opportunity to get accustomed to how we manage our monitoring instance and how to contribute changes. Plus, SUSE IT has restructured some time ago. We work a lot with SUSE IT and we rely on them, but we don't really know their new teams, so we need to understand it better. So what I want to do is with our team, but actually it's also helpful for everybody within SUSE to get accustomed to the new structures, like, see the team definitions once with the according team leaders and their scope and who is in there, and then some unusual abbreviations referring to the team name, something like that. I mentioned that there's still some things that we can improve to be long-term sustainable related to compliance. So how we deploy software so that we can ensure that we don't have a problem going forward, to update software, but so that we can trust each and every single contribution by SUSE employees when it happens on an untrusted public platform like GitHub and still deploy that. internally. And currently in progress is some alert handling plus some problem with workers unresponsive, which seems to be related to the unfortunate combination of various levels of tunnels that we have between different data centers, plus all MTU sizes, and I don't think anybody understands that anymore, unfortunately. But I'm happy that Nick doesn't give up yet. And that ticket is assigned to me, and I don't even remember what it is. I will check that today. Cool. So, do you guys have any questions for the tickets in the backlog as I have presented? If not, now is your opportunity to bring up any other questions related to what we work or what you think we might help you with. Anything? All right. If not, then
maybe a small thing only from my side.
Sure.
I don't know if it's worth mentioning. Maybe something what I don't know, but recently I was even asking Santi about this. Recently, I had a problem with Perl tidy, right? I know that the Perl tidy was updated in the meantime to the recent version, but anyways, I didn't get like a proper logs in the CI pipeline, right? We know that, and there is this checkbox that you can run with the verbose log, right? But still, when I rerun it with that checkbox ticked, still the quiet flag was used. I don't know if that's intentionally or something like a mistake, but in the end, I was having a trouble just because I overlooked some tabs, right? So I would assume that proper logging would be nice with this checkbox.
So you had the information that the tidy CI checks fail on your pull request, but you wouldn't know on which files?
Yeah, and when I ran it locally, actually with the same tidy version, still didn't report any problems. So I assume this must be my setup problem. Sure, granted, yes, but I assume that if that checkbox in the CI would work and remove that quiet flag, that would be just simply helpful.
So even if it is your personal setup problem, then I'm sure that many others are prone to run into the same problem. So I think that's something that could be
I assume so.
What checkbox are you referring to? I'm not sure I'm aware.
If you go to the to the CI which was already executed, and you check at the specific step of the CI, like for instance the spell tidy, and you press there, you can rerun it, and there is a checkbox beneath saying that you want to have more logs, right? I can dig it out if we don't find it right away, and I will send you a screenshot.
Is it the statics test?
Yes, should be that. And if you go, I believe, if you...
So this, I mean, obviously here it doesn't report a problem, right?
Yeah. And I had a failed job, right? And I actually pressed only that failed state job. And there was this box saying that I could actually rerun it with more verbose logs.
So let's see, can we find a failed ID job? Thanks. Look into that. Aha.
I would, yeah.
It says this file needs tidying.
Yep. And there was a checkbox somewhere which I could check, and I was expecting or hoping that this will just simply remove the quiet flag, and it will give me more verbose information. But Marius was about to say something.
Yes, I think this is just about GitHub. So the checkbox which you would get if you probably click on rerun jobs, And then you get some dialogue and no, I guess the rerun jobs button
There
above.
is.
For instance, you can say rerun failed jobs in the drop-down menu.
I know that I have seen somewhere it's like
And
rerun
if you
with
click
debug
on
logs.
it, you won't rerun it immediately. You get
I
this
see.
and then enable
Oh yeah,
debug
exactly.
logging.
Yeah.
And that's probably the checkbox you were referring to. But if you
Yes.
click on it, it gives you some generic explanations, and it's more about GitHub actions
I see.
themselves. I would at least assume. I also don't really remember now the contents of the explanations, but I'm sure we don't really make use of this action step debug variable.
Well, I guess it is an environment variable which one could read.
Probably
In
yes, but I
other-
don't think we do.
Yeah.
So yeah, in terms of like you asked if there would be something what
Yeah.
would be helpful. That would be helpful, of course. Is absolutely not urgent, no high priority. Just an observation which I ran into recently using the latest PERT ID.
Right.
Yeah, I guess
that's good. I will
I
think
actually
about it.
share the observation. My workaround was in this case to just run it locally, but obviously that's not super useful in all cases, depending on your local setup. So yeah, I guess we should look into it.
Thanks a lot.
Okay. Yeah. Sure. Valid idea. Anybody else with some other ideas? Questions? If not, I'll still hang around for some minutes. So if you have something that comes up later, please, you're welcome to bring it up then. This concludes the roadmap presentation. Thank you for your attention there. The next 2 sessions we will skip due to common public holiday or some day in the middle. But on the 16th of May, Jan, Bayer, and me would like to present in more detail the automatic submission of OpenGA-related packages using CI pipelines and OpenGA and OpenGA test. I'm sure that we have covered that topic already somewhere, but I actually couldn't find that in the title. So probably it was one of the free-driven sessions or something. So now we want to have that explicit, and also there were some changes in the past, so I think it's a good opportunity to look into that. Until then, thank you and goodbye.